Thank you, Ken and Trisha. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to our panelists. So just like the first two discussions, let me give you an overview of our final discussion for today, which is on capacity building and research in patient safety. Capacity building and research in patient safety is aligned with the Global Patient Safety Action Plan, wherein the strategic objective number 5 aims to inspire, educate, skill, and protect health workers to contribute to the design and delivery of safe care systems. Its specific strategies are the following: incorporate patient safety within health professional, undergraduate, and postgraduate education curricula, and continuing professional development, with an emphasis on interprofessional learning. And this interprofessional learning, I believe, was touched on this morning when we discussed the health professional education. Second is to identify and establish collaborations with centers of excellence or the academy in patient safety education and training. Ensure that patient safety core competencies are part of regulatory requirements for health professionals, and link commitment to patient safety with appraisal systems for healthcare professionals and managers. So in line with our efforts towards capacity building for patient safety, the basic course on patient safety and quality improvement is readily available online at the DOH Academy. So this course was developed together with the team of Dr. Lachika under the Program for Healthcare Quality and Patient Safety of the UP College of Medicine. So since its launch in September 2023, there have been around 6,000 learners who have successfully completed this basic course. So majority of learners are from the DOH hospitals, followed by the LGU hospitals, and then private health facilities. So in terms of region, the highest number of course completers are from Region 2, Cagayan Valley. There are also a significant number of course completers from Region 10, Northern Mindanao, and Region 11, Davao Region. So for a deeper dive on our topic, let us now hear from our panelists. So we will now proceed to the panel discussion. So I will first ask Dr. Diana, what are the gaps in patient safety education for medical and allied health programs? And how can patient safety concepts and principles be integrated in the curriculum?
Thank you, sir. Actually, when we took a look at the medical curriculum, medical muna kasi that's where I'm from, UP College of Medicine, there's really no explicit training on patient safety. There are pockets of where we try to integrate, safe medication prescribing, for example, or safe surgery. But the basics and the fundamentals of patient safety, knowledge of human factors, for example, why errors happen, understanding of organizations and processes, wala po niyan sa medical curriculum. I believe our nursing colleagues would have fared better in terms of that. The curriculum na very explicit ang patient safety, and I think there's been a lot of guidance from the WHO on patient safety curricula for a multi-professional edition of that curriculum is available. But I think in terms of really making sure that each profession would have an explicit education on patient safety, that's not still here. I think the pharmacy also has, but there's still some movement around improving, that it's really an explicit patient safety, and even if I may add na quality improvement also. Kasi I think when we're looking at patient safety, we have, let's say, a defect. So to respond to that defect, we need to also have foundations of quality improvement. So that's something that are the gaps. And I think earlier this morning, there was talk of soft skills. So you being able to collaborate, interprofessional collaboration, teamwork, and effective communication. Unfortunately, if you look at the entire curricula, these aren't as heavily emphasized. So it's more pa rin clinical competence, making the right diagnosis and recommending the right treatment. But how to get to that and making sure that the consequences of incorrect treatment or incorrect management can be dealt with parang hindi pa tayo doon kasing strong.
So you mentioned there's no explicit training in patient safety. So I think so it should not just be integrated into existing courses or units, but there should be an explicit course or unit on patient safety. Is that what you mean?
I think, sir, so that has to be both. No? So I agree na, for example, when interns rotate in surgery, the safe surgery processes and guidelines should be included. When they go to OB gynecology, that's the same thing. When they go to ambulatory care, that's echoed. Pero an explicit, maybe ang inisip ka namin, it's an introductory course. So before a medical student or nursing student or a pharmacy student or other health professions go into actual rotations as an intern, they need to have the basics, they need to have that understanding. Just to share, for example, we've had an experience where we piloted parang an interprofessional collaboration activity. We saw that the medical students, the nursing students, and the pharmacy students didn't really know how to talk to each other. And I think that's what we see in the actual hospital, diba? Nurses will have their own rounds, doctors will have their own rounds, diba? The pharmacists will have their own notes and rounds as well. So when we expect them to be a team in the hospital, they're not ready because that's something that we didn't prepare them for.
Thank you. So I think perhaps we can use the basic course on patient safety and quality improvement that you have developed, that is included in the DOH Academy as a stepping board for part of the curriculum in the medical course.
Insert lang something, sir. Actually, the basic course, it's not just for health professionals. So when we designed it, we realized that pag pumunta ang patient sa hospital, hindi lang naman doktor at professionals ang kasalamuhan niya. So it's meant to also educate even the administrative staff, yung janitorial staff. And part of that, for example, is how to approach a patient who has a complaint or someone who has an aberrant reaction to what happened to him or her in the hospital. So, kasi hindi lang naman po dapat doktor, hindi lang dapat nurse. So, that's the basic premise of the basic course, that we can actually improve communication, and safety is everyone's business.
Right. So because all of these workers in the hospital are involved in patient care and patient safety. Okay. So moving on to Dr. Anjali. So may I ask, what are the challenges in continuing education and training of healthcare professionals that we have encountered and that might also be encountered by other institutions as well? And how can this be overcome?
Good afternoon. So, I am the appointed patient safety officer of our institution. And if I may say, from DOH Hospital, whose patient safety unit is just in the transition from the initiation to compliance phase, the first and foremost challenge is recruiting more people who know or who are adept in patient safety concepts, because you need a team who will facilitate dissemination, who will facilitate cascading of the patient safety concepts. The science of patient safety is relatively new, as was discussed. It is not something we have learned through medical school. It's not included in our curriculum. So it makes us less confident to be discussing or cascading something that we know only superficially. So when I was appointed chair of the patient safety committee, I looked into websites. At that time, the only available locally accessible online was that of the Health Corps Academy. So I was happy when Dr. Chica actually, along with the DOH, launched the basic course of patient safety. Then we took that opportunity to engage all of our employees with the help of our NCC. We required everybody to finish the course. If you would look back to the slides earlier, we had the most number of computers. And Dr. Diane was asking, anong nangyari? So we have more and more staff reporting adverse events. No? We need this baseline because when we look at patient safety, it's a broad thing. No? We don't know where to start. We need baseline. So when these adverse events are coming in, these were the points we focused on. In terms of capacity building, since this is a broad topic, we took it one step at a time. So we had a report on medication administration delay because there is a limited number of nurses knowledgeable on catheter or permanent catheter handling. So we collaborated with the nephro service, the dialysis nurses to do training, hands-on demo and return demo on permanent catheter handling. Next, we have a report on sentinel event, adverse event. So we tap on the clinical pharmacists to emphasize on high alert medications, tagging medications before dispense, and providing, well actually we're into it, providing manual references for high alert medications. Say, we have increasing number of hospital-acquired infection. We tap on the IPCC to do lectures on bundles of care. So that's how we do it. And then we're trying to do this. We are orienting all the newly hired staff. We do trainings before they start their work. I mean, their newly hired employees. And then we do some trainings on a quarterly basis.
Thank you, Dr. Anjali. So, from starting as a self-learning through websites, we now have the informal basics course on patient safety online at the DOH Academy. And of course, you have mandated all your employees to undergo the patient safety course. And then it has become a culture in your hospital for this training. So from the basic safety course, you have gone through specific safety course on the tasks that the employees do. So moving to Dr. Pamela, Dr. Anjali already mentioned about IPC training. So how does capacity building such as basic IPC training or infection prevention controls training contribute to patient safety and better health outcomes?
Good afternoon. Me being a member of the Philippine Hospital Infection Control Society, it's a society that is wherein your members are have multi-specialties, and that of course we cater in the prevention of the transmission of your infectious disease. As FIX, we do basic training courses, and it's mostly didactic lectures. There are only a little of your simulation trainings because there is a problem on the data privacy in the hospitals we do our trainings. Of course, the advantages of having capacity building are when your workers would be well knowledge on the principles of basic infection prevention and control, they become more efficient, and of course their morals become boosted, and you can deliver your services very well to our patients. It also makes them, if you also know the knowledge, it will make them adaptable to the environment and they become more resilient. Learning the basic principles of infection prevention and control would help one also to anticipate certain risks that they would encounter in the hospital. So risk assessment po. And then with this, they could already make decisions on how to tackle the risk that they are encountering. Of course, they have to make sure that the data that they will gather should be available and should be of quality. We do not want to blame people if we find out that there are certain aspects that the preventive strategies have not been done very well. But we want to do this just to develop, of course, actionable goals and measurable objectives. In a way, you become evidence-based with what you find out. And then through education, we promote also a culture of safety that will further strengthen the organization. We will also implement error prevention strategies, recognize also the contributions of other health systems that will help also in the in the care of our patients, and we will also foster effective communication and teamwork.
Thank you. You mentioned about the didactics. No? So how often do you conduct these trainings?
How often do we do didactic lectures? I do didactic lectures in our hospital, but as a society, as long as the hospital comes to us for a training session, because for accreditation ng mga DOH, usually it's always like that. And the problem that we always have here is that we keep on training pero hindi nagiging continuous po yung knowledge kasi umaalis din po yung natuturuan po namin.
So by demand from the different hospitals as part of the licensing and regulatory requirements. Okay. So let me go back to Dr. Diana and move towards research on patient safety. So can you share, I believe you have conducted a research, can you share 3 remarkable findings from this research on the impact of quality of care that's provided to patient outcomes, and how can you integrate these research findings into evidence-based policies on patient safety?
Okay, ito na research na. So, maraming may allergic sa research whenever we say research. But just before I move into our research on patient safety, I think 3 remarkable findings to me about quality and outcomes. Because I think everyone knows if you improve quality, you're going to improve patient outcomes. What is little or less known is that yung kanina pinag-usapan about patient engagement, these patient-reported measures, these are usually thought of as parang lower or not less important than the clinical, mortality, length of stay. But there has been recent evidence that these patient-reported measures, satisfaction, patient experience, are also linked to the clinical outcomes. So it bears mentioning that dapat we also need to improve the patient experience because eventually it will also lead to the outcomes. The other finding probably that is out there, and I'm not sure if everyone knows, is that there was a very big clinical trial that was done in the Philippines to actually show that when you incentivize good quality care provided, you actually improve outcomes as well. I'm not sure if familiar with the kids study before, na parang if you incentivize physicians to actually improve, then care becomes better. And I think that's something that we need to be we need to consider more nowadays. And maybe that's something that can translate even more for financing. Kasi for now, I think when you have a patient who you treated for pneumonia, let's say, you will be reimbursed for the pneumonia, right? Regardless of whether the patient died, the patient improved, the patient, stayed longer than usual. There's really no motivation, there's really no, encouragement to do better because we're paid the same. And I think that sometimes it's the barrier, I guess, or the deterrent to changing and improving. So that's one. One, we all know that quality improves patient outcomes. Incentives on quality also improves outcomes, yet it's actually sustainable. So that begs the next point for our research is that for you to be able to appreciate that improved quality improves outcomes, we need to be comfortable with measuring quality. In our experience with our AHEAD patient safety project, unfortunately not all hospitals are comfortable sharing their data on, let's say, hospital-acquired infections or surgical site infections, or if they have a full protocol. Kasi it's like, mas may si Prof. Jen wala na, but yung parang dirty linen, dirty laundry, no? It's really airing out, where your weaknesses are. But that starts with that. That starts with awareness that you know what's going on, and that's what the premise of our study was. Even if there was a DOH administrative order since 2008, I think it was updated last 2020, we never really got to know if there was improvement in terms of patient safety and quality in the Philippines, because there wasn't really any indicator saying, okay, you did a good job over the last 10 years. So what we did was to go to 41 hospitals, may private, may mostly public, level 2, level 3 hospitals, both LGU and DOH trained hospitals. And we looked at how are they measuring quality, measuring patient safety. And so what we saw was, number one emphasis ng mga hospital ay infection prevention and control. So they're very, very good at that. They're very, very good at measuring. Siguro dahil ang infection prevention control program, even the DOH has been there for some time, no? Patient safety is a little later pa in the game. But very, very few actually monitor effective transitions of care, yung pag pumunta from ER to ward or from one provider to the other, there's no measure of that. Or even medication safety and falls. No, yung understanding and measuring of falls in the facility is not that good. So I think the main premise of our research finding is that there's variation sa hospitals natin. Then back then, as to how committed and how invested they are in patient safety. May mga hospitals, mostly the level 3 and the DOH hospitals who actually invest more and pay more attention. Unfortunately, some of our more, the level 2 and the LGU hospitals actually were less mature in terms of patient safety.
Yeah, so you mentioned that it's difficult to do researches on patient safety in hospitals, primarily because they are quite apprehensive in giving out their belief or their data. No? But you mentioned that, Dr. Pamela has mentioned earlier that we should not be putting blame on someone. So there should not be punitive on reporting these kinds of data. So just a follow-up question, Dr. Leanne, do you think we need more researchers and funding on patient safety?
Funding, yes. Research, yes. Why do I say that? Whenever I teach patient safety to my students, I have data from other countries. I would say there's a national data in Australia. They know all of their MRSA rates as a nation. O kaya yung UK, they actually have like 3.9% of deaths in the hospital are actually preventable. Okay, may isang newer study 2023, 1 out of 4 patients in the hospitals daw have an adverse event. Pero pag tinanong mo ano po yung data sa Philippines, wala tayo as a nation. And we're trying to do better in that sense. Establishing the burden of medical harms and errors, probably one of the most important things that we should do in terms of research. Quantifying how much is being spent on these, kasi baka yun talaga yung motivation, no? I saw in some of the recent literature, 15% of health expenditure is actually on safety failures. So, ang laki niya. It's a very under-recognized drain of expenses. No? So, I think that there has to be some sort of reorientation sa research agenda. No, that it's not just care delivery. Kasi, of course, access and delivery of care, very important. We need to reach as many patients as possible. But the question is, when we reach the patient, are we actually making them better? So, yun yung quality, yun yung safety, and that's a little bit lacking lang in terms of research.
So thank you. So indeed, we need more researchers and more funding for researchers.
And we can help. So UP College of Medicine, we're very happy to partner with you.
Right. So I just would like to mention that the DOH, I think, can fund researchers such as this as well. So to Dr. Anjali, so may I know what role does training and education play in your approach to capacity building for patient safety, and how would you tailor fit training programs to different categories of staff? For example, different patient safety training program for doctors, different for nurses, pharmacists, and others.
Training and education is capacity building. It's the way you disseminate, or you do knowledge dissemination. So you discuss evidence-based practices, strategies, best practices. Second is skills development. By training and educating your staff, you do develop their communication skills, their teamwork, and error reporting skills. Third and very important is cultural transformation. Doing education and training, it helps in instilling in your staff the culture of safety, where everybody feels psychologically safe to report errors and be committed to identifying and mitigating risk for patient safety. Now, with tailored fitting to specific groups, this is important because when you do training and education, you have to cater to what is needed by the group so that it is relevant and effective training. So one is that you do have to identify the needs of the groups. Depende sa patient safety challenges of certain areas, you have to address that. And then there are ways also to do trainings. You have to have mixed type of learning. You can employ, apart from lectures, you do role playing, you use return demos, and all that. So it's a higher form of training that will really help the staff. And then what else? Sorry, I have also, the patient safety should not, training should not be a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. Because there are updates. We have to look into evidence-based strategies, best practices to improve also the patient safety care for the patients. Also, it was mentioned that interprofessional education programs, it brings staff from various disciplines and can foster collaboration, communication, and shared understanding of patient safety goals. This may be done during the patient safety models. The MNM is one venue for training and education because then we invite different divisions. You discuss on the root, you present the root cause, you analysis, you discuss the 5 points, and then the areas who need improvement are made aware. What is the problem? And so then they can address this.
So indeed, different groups would have different needs and of course different methods of this training, from, as you mentioned, the tactics or lectures or hands-on training, demo, return demo. Yeah.
Just to add, I think that's very important, no, to emphasize that learning in patient safety and quality is actually contextual. So the lectures, the didactics, even the online course will not be enough. Parang it has to be echoed during yung routine care. No? So when you say yung non-punitive culture, so you actually do the talk. Siguro that's what's probably the most challenging about patient safety kasi is for people and even organizations to learn, dapat na-apply in-apply talaga nila. So, we do hope that there might be opportunities pa for us to do not just the online course, has to be supplemented talaga by contextual learning, but that can also be done ng institutions, tama si Dong, no, na pag may M&M, i-insert kayo patient safety. Or kung meron kayong bedside rounds, isama doon yung pinag-usapan niyo about infection control and whatnot. Kasi if it's just the didactics, sometimes it's too abstract, no? That the principles might be too hindi nakikita. And I think actually the best parang learning experience, unfortunately, is when there's an adverse event. And that might be unfortunate definitely for the patient and everyone else, but that has to be an opportunity to learn. So we encourage, trainees to take part or even observe how to do these root cause analysis, and they have an idea of how devastating it is for patients and families to have these adverse events, and therefore have the motivation and also have the knowledge and skills to handle this situation.
So if I may add, actually the societies are also playing an important role in patient safety. For example, I am an obstetrician gynecologist, and they are already the accrediting body for residency training is now recommending or requiring for accreditation an integration of the patient safety. So for the OB-GYN, they are required to do eclampsia because they focus on the topmost morbidity mortality. So they do pre-eclampsia drills. We have to be ready with emergency toolkits for hemorrhagic obstetric hemorrhages. Also, we are doing patient blood management. So it has to be tailored fit.
So you're mentioning that patient safety training should be part of also of the specialty society accreditation and not just in the curriculum. Okay, thank you. So for Dr. Pamela, so what strategies have you used to build capacity within a healthcare team or organization or the different hospitals, and how do you measure the effectiveness of these strategies?
Actually, sir, as mentioned, it's only always about training pa lang and your usual didactic lectures. And the knowledge is not continuous because of people going to other countries for better opportunities. So I guess the leaders of every hospital should parang meron na silang succession planning ahead of time if these people that we are teaching aalis na. So sayang lang naman yung knowledge ng pula yon. And then to upgrade naman our trainings, this 2025, we have a collaboration already with Dr. Tabora, RITM, na baka pupunta dito yung Asia Pacific Infection yung APIC, yung APSIC conference dito sa 2025. And this is a great opportunity, at least in attending these kinds of conferences, we may learn also the best practices of other neighboring countries, the ASEAN way. And of course, we also do not have, since we also do not have national statistics on the incidence of our HAIs, puro lang ang statistics po lang natin is in our hospitals. We follow CDC guidelines and European guidelines, but most of these guidelines are not applicable to our setup because yung resources na gagamitin and very costly. So siguro dapat, lalo-lalo na po yung definition of ventilator-associated events, maraming nurses na nahihirapan to detect VAEs. An ambitious approach that we are also extending as a society is, sana we would like also to extend our help or training sa community. So far parang isang health clinic lang ang lumapit po sa amin. And again, it's just also for JCI accreditation. Yun lang, there are a lot of learnings that we should or there are a lot of learnings na kailangan malaman talaga ng isang IPC sa infection prevention and control. The simple nga po na hand hygiene is already very difficult to measure kung talagang nagpre-prevent po tayo ng hospital. Kasi ang nagagawa lang po talaga po sa hospital is, di ba we have po 5 moments. Ang nagagawa lang po talaga is moment number 1 and moment number 5. Pagpasok po sa room ng patient at paglabas sa room ng patient, hanggang dun na lang po tayo.
Usually, open number 5 na yung paglabas.
Yes. And then, yun lang, if you want your ICN, your infection control nurses to do the other surveillances, syempre mag-aangal din kasi ang dami rin din nila, sir, ginagawang or kumbaga sinasabi natin multitasking. So siguro dapat iwasan din nga sa isang institution yung multitasking. Dapat kung ano lang talaga gagawin ni infection control nurse, yun lang po yun. What else? Of course, since we want to sustain education through FIX, hindi lang dapat as a society, dapat maging advocacy na as in the national level.
Thank you, Dr. Pamela. So you mentioned the importance of leadership in the hospital to roll out these training courses, and as it's evident in Dr. Angeli's hospital or in her medical center chief, I think has required their employees to undergo these basic safety training courses. So I think we have come to the end of our panel discussion, and may I request our panelists for some last messages to our audience. Dr. Diana?
I think it's hirap na take-home messages. Nalala ko huli ka na. But I think yung about capacity building and research, it doesn't have to be just the individual when we capacitate. We also need to capacitate organizations. So it has to have, I think it goes beyond that pa, and that's probably what's probably daunting about patient safety and quality improvement, because it's not just the individual guy. We need to look at systems. But I think yung work na to, for me, it's very difficult because you deal with, of course, adverse events and harms. But I always say na it takes a village naman. I mean, it's not just yung mga patient safety officers natin, when you talk to them, it's always they feel like the burden is all on them. But I think a reassuring fact is we need to have a team, we need to have a group of people that's really committed to build capacity, do research, and implement patient safety. And with that small start, I think we can do a lot of things naman. So teamwork, organization, capacity building beyond just the individual.
Dr. Anjali?
Maybe at 3 for a training of trainers, perhaps from the wherever. We need, I think, for the patient safety officers, we need to be trained formally for this, so we can do our jobs efficiently. It's not enough that we know the basic concepts, but how to really do it in the whole of the hospital. We need to have more of trainings for this.
And last but not the least, Dr. Pamela.
Infection prevention and control should be a way of life always in the hospital and in any other healthcare setting. Everybody should know principles of prevention of infectious disease. Hindi lang kailangan parati na lang pag dumating lang si pandemya, doon lang tayo matututo. Kailangan araw-araw natin siyang tutunan para ready po tayo sa every pandemic na darating sa atin.
Dr. Diana, one last point.
Isip ko, I think this is a good opportunity kasi we have, I'm sure, medical center chiefs, training officers, I think one thing about research pala here for patient safety is quality improvement research is actually very, parang it's really nicer sometimes than your traditional research. Some of my trainees would say, gusto nila yung QI because you're identifying a problem and you're actually solving it. Yung actually having the implementation of an intervention and then seeing real results. That's one advantage. The second advantage is wala masyadong ethics review because inherently ang QI, it's low risk. Eh. You're talking about processes, you're not talking about individual patients. And then three, parang yung QI research, it tends to be shorter than the traditional research. It usually spans, even you can do a QI research in a matter of weeks lang or a few months. So because we have medical center chiefs here and training, siguro training individual or officers, baka you'd like to encourage your trainees and even your staff to do QI research. It's not as statistics intensive as your usual research. It has promise because may tangible results, whether positive or negative, and it's really publishable. It's nice to see a lot of improvement opportunities being done and actually implemented. So yun lang, I think that's part of the research that's daunting sa inyo. Baka sa QI research, it's less daunting because it's not stat heavy. The ethics review usually either expedited or even exempted. And then there's a promise of improvement or at least change. Yun lang. Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it, our dear participants. So thank you very much to our panelists for sharing your invaluable expertise and experiences on capacity building research and patient safety.
Once again, thank you to our moderator.